بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء وإمام المرسلين سيدنا ومولانا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين اللهم فقهنا في الدين وعلمنا التعويل وجعلنا من خيرة أمة سيدنا محمد عليه أفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم اللهم لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. We seek Allah's protection from knowledge that does not benefit, from a heart that has no khushu, from a nafs that's never had enough, from an eye that does not tear, and from a dua that's not heard. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We continue with the Seerah of the Prophet, the biography of the Prophet, and lessons that we can learn from that. Now, last week we spoke about the slander of our mother, Sayyidah Aisha, and we spoke about how much of a difficult time that was, okay, both for Sayyidah Aisha and for the Prophet. Remember, the hypocrites were trying to get to the Prophet through one of his, his beloved wife. Okay, everyone knew the most beloved was Sayyidah Aisha. Now, like I said, we covered that in quite a bit of detail. We spoke about how there was that long period, a month, there was no revelation. And what was the wisdom even behind revelation? Then why not being a revelation? Because you could see the conduct of the Prophet ﷺ. It was a lesson for us. You can't use this because the Prophet ﷺ knew. That's why he behaved like that. No, this is like I said, throughout the life and the seerah, we go through everything in detail, is learning for us how to conduct ourselves. This is how the Prophet ﷺ behaved. This is how we should behave. Okay, so it was for us in that sense. Then you have the aspect of it almost it kind of showed the proof of the Quran as well. Because if it was like I mentioned, people accuse the Prophet ﷺ that it was coming from himself, he was inventing it. Okay, then why did it take so long? Okay, revelation would have come straight away, and say that Aisha is innocent. No, it was that period, like a month. And again, like I said, I've been in quite a bit of detail when we covered the Quran module, so I won't go into much detail on that. But that was a difficult period, a difficult time. So before we move on, just quickly, so I'm going to go. This is currently where we're at in terms of the household of the Prophet ﷺ. Okay, so where we're at in terms of the household of the Prophet ﷺ. So you've got the wives of the Prophet ﷺ. Obviously, Sayyidah Khadija, who passed away. Okay, and her children, Sayyidah Qasim, who also has passed away. You have Sayyidah Zainab, okay, who is married to Sayyidah Zainab, who's married to Abdul As, like we spoke about as well. They have a child, grandchild, Umama bint Abul As. Okay. Then you have Sayyidina Ruqayya, who's also passed away, who was, remember, married to Sayyidina Uthman. Then you have Sayyidina Kulthum, who is married to Sayyidina Uthman. Remember? So Sayyidina Ruqayya passes away, and then the Prophet marries his other daughter to Sayyidina Uthman. Okay. Then you have Sayyidina Fatima, who's married to Sayyidina Ali, who have two children, Hassan and Hussein. Sayyidina Hassan, Sayyidina Hussein. Okay, they're around about at this point in time where we are. They're around about, let's say, three. Sayyidina Hassan is about 3 years old. Sayyidina Hussein is around about 2 years old. Okay, and then obviously you have Sayyidina Abdullah, who also who passed away in infancy. Okay, so that's from Sayyidah Khadija. Then now the other wives of the Prophet ﷺ currently, so who is currently married to, okay, or he has been married to. Sayyidah mother Sayyidah Sauda bint Zama. Okay, then you have Sayyidah Aisha bint Abu Bakr. Okay, then you have Sayyidah Hafsa bint Umar. You have Sayyidina Zainab bint Huzaima, who has passed away, remember. Okay, Sayyidina Zainab bint Huzaima, who's passed away. And then you have Salama bint Abi Umayyah. And then you have Sayyidina Zainab bint Jash. Okay, so there was two Zainab. So Sayyidina Zainab bint Huzaima passed away, and we covered that. And then you have the other one, Sayyidina Zainab bint Jash, who we mentioned last week as well, because she kind of almost like played an important role. You know, she was full of praise with of Sayyidina Aisha. You know, after like you talk about kind of favoritism, but after Sayyidina Aisha, it was kind of Sayyidina Zainab. Okay, so you had this kind of rivalry between the two. Okay, and then most recently, a few weeks back, we spoke about Sayyidina Juwairiya bint Harith. Okay, we can talk about a rough age. Okay, in terms of the rough age, Sayyidina Sauda, again, here he says around about 36 years old. Okay, they probably would have been older than that. Sayyidina Aisha around about like the late teens. She was in the late teens. Sayyidina Hafsa around about 22, early 20s. Sayyidina Salama around about 30s. Okay, Sayyidina Zainab bin Jash around about 40s. And Sayyidina Juwairiya like a 20s. Okay, late teens or the 20s or 20, around about there. That's rough age basically. So that's, you know, just to give you an idea, picture of it. So that's currently who, so you got two of his wives have passed away. Okay, but then the other one's currently who he's married to. And remember, when we get near the end, I'm going to kind of show you the houses and the structure of around Masjid Nabi, the houses of the wives of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Okay, the servant, you got Rehana bin Zaid. Okay, then you can almost say what you say, the kind of adopted family of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So Ali, saying Ali bin Abi Talib. Okay, 20, 25, around about 25 maybe, roughly his age. Sayyidina Fatima around about 23 ages. Okay. Zayd ibn Haritha, the adopted son, which was later kind of said that look, the Prophet ﷺ has no sons, but like he announced him as his adopted son. He's around about 48, 50. Okay, and his son Usama bin Zayd around about 16, 17, 18, around about that age, and we spoke about Usama as well. Okay, then within there you have Sayyidina Ayman, who was married to Sayyidina Zayd. Okay, Zainab bin Jash, who was married to Sayyidina Zayd, the kind of adopted son of the Prophet ﷺ, but again, to clarify that he's not the adopted son, and then it's okay for the Prophet ﷺ to marry her. So then that's how the Prophet ﷺ marries Sayyidina Zainab bin Jash. And then you got Kulthum ibn bint Uqba. Okay, that was the wives of Sayyidina Zayd. Okay, and then you have his servant, who is Anas ibn Malik. So that was I just wanted to kind of mention this. So I made a note, the things here. This is kind of almost like a snapshot at this point where we got to. Okay, the 6th year of the Hijri, 6th year of Hijrah. This is where we kind of got to. That's the kind of household of the Prophet ﷺ, and you can understand how the household of the Prophet ﷺ is. Bear that in mind. Okay. So moving on then, one of the most, and what today's lesson is about, one of the most significant events of the Medina Seerah that did not kind of involve a conflict such, and because of which, I'm just trying to think, okay, about my words here, because of which the kind of current setup or the current structure of the Islamic world, the outcome, the current structure is because of this kind of event that took place. Okay, this is the turning point. After this kind of sets everything up. Okay, where you kind of see it as a battle lost, almost you can say, but on the long run, it's victory. Okay, and that's kind of how it's described. Okay, which is the Treaty of Hudaybiyah. Okay, the Treaty of Hudaybiyah. It's a really, really important event. Okay, really important event. Now, so kind of following the Battle of the Trench, okay, kind of the kind of last time that an enemy kind of came out against the Prophet ﷺ in Medina, okay, so they had kind of been like a kind of relative period of quiet, okay, on the political side of things, but of course there were a number of things still going on, okay, a number of kind of difficulties with kind of hypocrites and so forth. We just spoke about that last week. Okay, it was so difficult. But we're starting to see like a kind of turning of the tide. Okay, the Prophet ﷺ, the Muslims in Medina are becoming recognized as a force to be reckoned with. Okay, they have become accepted generally in the Arabian Peninsula. And the word is spreading. Okay, the word is spreading. Now, shortly after it's either kind of during Ramadan or shortly after the end of Ramadan, the Prophet ﷺ kind of experiences kind of these kind of a kind of vivid dream instructing him to lead the Umrah. Okay, so it's either straight after end of after the end of the Ramadan or the last kind of nights of Ramadan. Okay, so he's kind of dreaming that he's performing Umrah. He's doing the tawaf around the Kaaba. He's kind of shaving his hair off. The Umrah kind of completion of the Umrah, etc. So kind of he relates this. So he tells his companions what his habit was to tell his companions about the dream that he had. Okay, and there were a number of things that were linked to this. Okay? So really, the kind of way of doing things is Fajr after Fajr, and I've mentioned this. They would sit in the masjid and then they would kind of describe their dreams. They'll talk about their dreams. Okay, so this is the way the Prophet ﷺ spoke to them about his dream. Now, there were a number of things that were linked to this. Kind of during the campaign of Banu Mustalik. Remember this, the campaign of Banu Mustalik, which we covered just before our kind of Rabiul Awwal break. The Muslims kind of went down south. Okay, they went down south. It was the closest they had been to Mecca. Okay, they went down south, closest they'd been. So, the Banu Mustalik, he'd taken them by surprise. He captured them. They were kind of being roused to fight against them. So he took them by surprise, captured them. The whole tribe eventually kind of became Muslim. By virtue of the wisdom of the Prophet ﷺ, the generosity that he showed, in virtue the entire tribe had entered Islam. Okay, but during this campaign they had come very close to Mecca. Okay, this was the closest the Muhajir. Remember, the Muhajir are still Meccans at the end of the day. Okay? They still yearn for their home. Okay, remember right at the start when the Prophet ﷺ made dua for them because they were getting ill. They were just kind of hallucinating. Speaking, Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq just talking about Makkah, they would sing these songs about Makkah, and the Prophet ﷺ made dua, Allah Ta'ala, make Medina beloved to them as well, just as Makkah is. Okay. Anyway, so that was the closest they had come to Makkah, and they kind of still yearn for their home, which they consider their home, the place where their families were and so forth. Okay, and during the campaign of Banu Mustalik, they had kind of reach as close to home as they had ever done before. Okay, there'd been a number of kind of campaigns that have kind of gone off to the north, to the east, and so forth. But this one, which took them down to the south, they had been overtaken by a yearning for Makkah. It brought back memories for them. Okay, it brought back memories of Makkah, and so forth. Okay, so the Prophet ﷺ, realizing this yearning amongst his companions, and also on the basis of the kind of dream that he had, he decided to perform Umrah. Okay, he decided to perform Umrah. Now, a point that probably needs to be made here, and the Arabs of the kind of peninsula, there were certain kind of traces of the religion of Ibrahim, alayhi salam, or Abraham. Okay, that they maintained despite their polytheism. And one of these was the sanctity of the Kaaba, okay, and the lands around the Kaaba. that were referred to as the haram. Okay, haram comes from the root kind of same as haram. So okay, so a place where certain things are forbidden. A haram is a place where certain things are forbidden. Okay, warfare is forbidden, and it's something that pagan Arabs respected. So even when the people of Mecca were going to go to war with themselves, or amongst like the tribes within Mecca, were going to go war with themselves, with each other, they would go outside of Mecca, outside the boundaries of the haram, and fight. Okay, but they wouldn't fight within the boundaries of the haram. Okay, so this was something that they took very seriously. Although, if I'm honest, there are kind of reports of how they would tend to, at times, not have these kind of fixed months. Okay, they would kind of chop and change and say, oh, you know what, we won't call this month one of the sacred months. We'll change over. We'll call it this month so we can have this fight, and then we'll swap it over. Anyway, that stopped from the conquest of Makkah onwards, kind of thing. But anyway, the second thing was the rites of the pilgrimage. Okay, so you had the haram, no fighting, etc. took place there. So they mixed things up. So haram, no fighting took place, but then you also had the sacred month. So we'll talk about that a bit later. So that's what I was talking about in terms of sacred month. So you had the haram, so the area with no fighting going to take place. Then the second of them was the rites of pilgrimage. Although kind of the purpose of pilgrimage had been forgotten, which was kind of to visit the house of Abraham, who was the great prophet of monotheism. Okay, although the monotheism of Abraham, Ibrahim had been forgotten about, the sanctity of the Kaaba and the importance of going there and making pilgrimage, they had not been forgotten. And what was, what the Arabs had done because of, because the Kaaba, and this is one of the reasons that people fall into polytheism, when we say that seeing is believing. Okay, seeing is believing. What do we mean? We mean that a visual cue is very powerful. Okay, to have a physical manifestation of something is very, very powerful. Okay, there was no physical manifestation of God. There was no image. There was no statue. There was no idol. All there was this cube. Okay, this is why even medieval Christians believe that the God that the Muslims worshipped was the Kaaba. Okay, so it's very easy. You can see it, it's taken as a physical manifestation at some point. We covered all this right at the start when polytheism had taken root and idols had been brought back to the Kaaba. So the Kaaba in the time of the Prophet ﷺ was kind of surrounded by idols. There was a kind of ring of idols around the Kaaba. Okay, just like now there's a kind of ring of shopping malls around the Kaaba. Okay, then there was a ring of idols around the Kaaba. Okay, and the most important idol were placed within the Kaaba itself. Okay, so the Arabs, would come to perform pilgrimage to Mecca, and when they, when they would make a tawaf, and part of their faith was that they would make tawaf naked. So men would make tawaf during the day, and women would make tawaf during the night. Okay, so there was these kind of traces of the Abrahamic religion that they had, that they kind of held to the sanctity of Mecca, the importance of the pilgrimage, and the tawaf was one, as well as the sanctity of the sacred months, and the purpose of the sacred months. There was these, like I mentioned earlier. So you have the haram, the area forbidden fighting, kind of, then you had the kind of pilgrimage, the pilgrims, and then you had these kind of certain months that were considered to be sacred. And this is all in the time of Jahiliyyah, before, it came about before Islam as well. Okay, so you had these months that were known to be sacred. Okay, one is Rajab. Okay, so then you have Zulqa'dah, Zulhijjah, and Muharram. Now, one of the reasons is why they're considered sacred, and why the idea was that no fighting would take place in these months. No harm. was it Sayyidina Ibn Abbas mentioned that during these sacred months, when someone is doing tawaf, so a man or a son would see his father's killer doing tawaf, but he would not do anything, or he could not do anything. Okay, so that also because the fact that in the haram, but also the sacred months as well, considering that. Okay, so one of the reasons that's mentioned here is that so that people could, these months were so people like could make the pilgrimage. It's safe for them to travel, etc. No one will fight you, whatnot. Okay, these were the sacred months. No one would fight you. Give you that freedom to go and make the pilgrimage. Take advantage of the sacred months. So what happens is that the Prophet ﷺ decides to set out. Okay, and the kind of majority, and I think that is probably unanimous actually, but that's your opinion. Definitely majority, but maybe unanimous, and they decide, agree on the fact that the Prophet ﷺ sets out on 1st of Dhul Qaidah. Okay, 1st of Dhul Qaidah, 6th Hijri. Okay, remember he had the dream, if not at the end of Ramadan, after Ramadan, straight after Ramadan. Okay, but he delayed setting off. Okay, so take advantage of the sacred months, to take advantage of the sanctity of Mecca, that he's going with his companions to perform an Umrah. Okay, so and also send out a message, clear message to the Quraysh, or the I've not come for fighting. I'm traveling in the sacred months. We just want to make the pilgrimage, perform Umrah. Okay, so the Prophet ﷺ and 1500 of his companions set out. Where we also, have the number as 400, so let's say 1400. So it's 1400, 1500, but around about that, and some kind of narrations say over 1,000. Okay, so they set out, and they take with them 70 camels for sacrifice. They dress in the pilgrim garb. They, I suppose, Prophet ﷺ removes his turban and then dresses himself in the pilgrim garb. On his journey, Salama was the wife that he took with on this journey. Okay, so they set off. They only have a sword in their kind of shield, bows and arrows for hunting, and they make their way. Okay, their way. So you can imagine the excitement of the Muhajir. Okay, 6 years since they've been home, as such. In terms of the kind of bow and arrow and sword, the kind of difference of opinion on that as well. Some say they did not have it, some say they did. If you want to kind of the position could be that they took them along with them, but had them separately, just in case. Now remember this: the Prophet ﷺ would always take precaution. Okay, this was a massive risk. Okay, this was a massive risk. Let me just kind of build it up a bit here, and actually let me talk about this next part, and then we'll build it up on the situation, because you have the Muhajir. It's been 6 years since they've been home, as such. Okay. However, what happens? The surrounding Bedouins, they did not accompany the Prophet ﷺ, and this is something that is mentioned in the Quran, Surah Fath. Hold on a minute. Okay. Just trying to find. Okay. Let's close it up. Try again. سيقول لك المخلفون من الأعراب شغلتنا أموالنا وأهلنا فاستغفر لنا يقولون بألسنتهم ما ليس في قلوبهم قل فمن يملك لكم من الله شيئا إن أراد بكم ضرا أو أراد بكم نفعا بل كان الله بما تعملون خبيرا. So the Surah Fatah verse 12, the first ayah, kind of those of the Bedouins, kind of dwellers of the desert, who kind of did not respond to your call to kind of participate in this kind of minor pilgrimage campaign, and they stayed behind. Okay, stayed behind. Will say to you, kind of as a way of excuse, our possessions and families kept us busy, so ask God for our forgiveness. Okay, so they speak with their tongues, that which is not in their hearts, and say to them, who is there that can intervene on your behalf with God if He wills harm for you or if He wills a benefit for you? Whatever excuse you offer, bear in mind that God is fully aware of all that you do. Okay. بل ظننتم أن لن ينقلب الرسول والمؤمنون إلى أهلهم أبدا وزين ذلك في قلوبكم وظننتم ظن السوء وكنتم قوما بورا. So the next slide, verse 13. Indeed, you thought that the messenger and the believers would never return to their families from the campaign. Okay, so it's like the reason why you made these excuses is because you thought that they're not going to return. So the Prophet ﷺ will be killed. He's not going to return. So you just made these excuses. And this thought was decked out to be appealing in your hearts. Okay, and you entered an evil thought, that God would not help the believers and they would be defeated. Okay, in this thinking, you have, you proved yourself to be, and you are people useless and doomed to perish. Okay, so that's Surah Fatah. Now, one of the things is that, look, it was a pilgrimage, so actually why is it that they were doomed? It wasn't the fact that they refused to go, it was the thought that they were thinking. They're thinking that Prophet ﷺ will be killed, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not protect the believers. This thought about that, they just made excuses for themselves. And the books of Tafsir mention how these Bedouins, said to each other, the Prophet ﷺ wants us to go to the same people. Okay, so you can imagine this, you need to understand. Go to the same people that came here to kill us. He said, we will not go. Let's make some excuse. Okay, so they were exposed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay. They kind of missed out on the opportunity to increase their ranks. Okay, so kind of the Sahaba have ranks. Okay, you have the 10 promised paradise, then you have the participant of Badr, then comes those involved within the Treaty of Hudaybiyah. Okay, and obviously, like you've got, for example, the scholar says that the best of the Sahaba was Abu Bakr Siddiq. Like I say, you got that, but generally speaking, in certain ranks, that's how they come. So you can imagine here, there's just been war after war between the Muslims and the Quraysh, the non-Muslims. Just recently, you've just been kind of decked out for how long? Suffered so much. Right? They came with 10,000 strong to destroy you. After all that, now you're deciding, look, let's go there. Okay, without kind of fighting, without armor, not ready for battle, just going there to do the Umrah. And so you can imagine, you can understand, the doubters are doubting there. It's not going to be possible. You're definitely going to get killed. Okay. Now, what happens is this gives the Quraysh a serious problem. Think about the balance of power. Okay, the kind of Ahlullah, have suffered a series of Ahlullah, kind of the people of Allah that they call themselves, have suffered a series of humiliating defeats. At the hands of one of that. Just a kind of few years earlier, they had exiled effectively from Mecca, who are now kind of bearing down on Mecca with 1,500 of his followers. Okay, what's going to happen? what's going to happen when he gets to Mecca? Okay, these people, they have been fighting against this religion. Now the Prophet ﷺ is going to come and think about what to do. There is a kind of a heated discussion among the leaders of the Quraysh. Okay, because remember, never in history have they stopped a pilgrim to come, to come to Mecca, to come to the Kaaba, to make pilgrimage. Never have they stopped any pilgrims. Okay, in their history. Okay, never had they stopped any pilgrims in history. No one had. They had never stopped anyone coming for pilgrimage. Okay. And what they eventually decide is that in this case, they will stop the Prophet ﷺ and his followers. Okay, so never been done before, but in this case, it's an exception. No, we're going to stop him. Okay, we're going to stop him. Okay. So the Quraysh soon kind of learn about the approaching pilgrims and send Khalid ibn Walid with 200 men to block their entry. So that is Khalid ibn Walid kind of goes out. Okay. So they send 200 horsemen, but under the command of Khalid bin Walid, and they send him out to a place which is kind of outside of the Haram, so where they can fight if they want to. Even the fact that it's the sacred month, one of the sacred months have started, so they're thinking we're still going to go outside the Haram. We have to fight. We'll fight outside the Haram. So it's almost like let's not do the double thing here. Fight in the sacred month and within the Haram. So they go outside the Haram. So they send him out to wait, and this is on the way, on the route. I've been a bit busy, and probably I'm going to be for the next couple of weeks as well, but I'll try to kind of show the map and trying to show the area. But if you kind of picture it, so you've got Medina at the top, Makkah down south. So it was just kind of straight path down, okay? And so Khalid bin Walid was sent out on that path. So even at those times, they kind of had highways, they had routes. Okay, they had highway routes. This was the route. Okay, and this was the route. Remember, the Prophet ﷺ, normally most of his battles, the expectation was to take one route, but he would take another route. Even with Hijrah, when him and Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq set off, instead of setting off north, they kind of went south, opposite direction, to put them off. So the Prophet ﷺ had all this, but this was, no mind, nothing. Straight, I'm coming to the Kaaba, to Mecca, and we're not coming to fight. Again, one after the other, he's sending out these messages. So remember, the way of the Prophet ﷺ was to, he took precautions always. He sent out scouts. So even in this case, when he kind of sent out, I think when they got to the point of for the Ihram. So he sent out, I think Busur, his name was. This man, he was not part of the kind of the Muhajir or Ansar, etc. He was part of this other neutral tribe, although he was a Muslim that people never knew, but he sent him out to, go and get some information to understand what it is. Now the Prophet only intended to make Umrah. So kind of in normal battles, kind of like I mentioned, he would go different direction, but here he was going straight down. That's it. I'm not coming to fight. What happened is actually another incident that takes place, and it's simply and it's good at times we look at these incidents, because then it brings about the fiqh. So last week we spoke about the necklace of Sayyidina Aisha, and because of that, her losing a necklace, there's this dispensation that's given to the Muslims at the Yemen, and they were so overjoyed because it was a major thing. They can't just open up a tap and just let all the water continue running endlessly. No, they had to carry water with them. Okay, so, and again here you will get another fiqh ruling that comes about with an incident that takes place. So we'll kind of quickly mention it. So they were on the route, and this was kind of separate to sending out there was kind of reports that a small group is approaching, and these scouts were sent out. It turns out it was nothing. Okay, so it turns out it was nothing. It was nothing about it. But on the way back, something happened. Okay, so the companions were all in ihram except for one of them, and I had no idea why this one companion was not in ihram. And I was looking at some of the narrations actually, and he mentioned it because he wasn't in ihram. Okay, Maybe next week I'll probably mention some of the narrations, because we got short on time. So if I start going through that, we're going to overrun again. So I'm just going to get at the story first, and then next week we probably I'll just narrate some of them. So the companions, one of them was not wearing ihram. No idea why not. Okay, no idea why not. But the rest of them were wearing ihram. And what happens is, on the way back, they see a zebra, or one of those. Okay, I think some of the, especially the narrations that I read, they describe it as a wild donkey, which is not. It was a zebra. Okay, but so those that are wearing an ihram, they notice it, but they do not say anything. They don't speak. Because the one Sahaba who was not in ihram, what happens is, as he continues walking, then he notices it. So he's on his horse and he notices it, and then he tells the ihram, those that are wearing ihram, oh, pass me my bow and arrow. Pass me my bow and arrow. And they said, no, we're in ihram. No, we can't do that. So then he had to jump down, grab his bow and arrow, jump back up, chase the zebra, and make the kill. Okay, make the kill, make the sacrifice. So he comes back, and then he says, "Here, help yourself. I've got meat here." But this is something you got to understand here, is that nowadays and age we have meat every day. I just got to go to the shop, make a phone call, off we go to the takeaway, whatnot. There's luxury everywhere. But that wasn't the case then. Okay, I'm talking about here, but I'm talking about all over the world pretty much. Even if we were to go to Mecca, or you go to the areas that we're speaking about, it'll be easily accessible there as well. Okay, but things were difficult then, yeah. So this was something, having meat. Everyone wanted meat, but the Sahaba now look at their taqwa. They're like, no. First of all, they did not even mention it in ihram, even though they would have been hungry. Then you got this meat in front of you, literally kind of cooked on a plate, basically, figuratively speaking, and still they refuse. We don't want anything to do with this kill. Okay, we're not going to have it, even though they would have wanted it, but they said no. Okay, so what happens is, they return back and they go to the Prophet ﷺ and they say, this is what happened. And they obviously they want a ruling on the back of it. Could we have had the meat, or could we have the meat, or shouldn't we? And the Prophet ﷺ said, did you point towards the zebra at any point? So did you point towards him and say, oh, there's a zebra? So did he, due to kind of the companion that did not have the ihram, did you kind of alert him, nudge him and say, look, there's a zebra there? He said, no, we didn't. Okay. Did you assist him in any way? Like pass something over to him, assist him in the kill in any way? He said, no, we didn't. They said, then it's fine. Then, it's halal and you can have it. Have the meat. If there's any left over, bring me some as well. Okay. If there's any left over, bring me some as well. So here you kind of get this ruling on the back of it. But again, look at the of the companions, how very cautious they were of the food they're going to eat, etc. Okay. Anyway, okay, Busra kind of goes, he gets his information and comes back and informs the Prophet ﷺ. He was told about them, coming. So he says, they've sent out kind of people to intercept you. And at that point, and again, I'll try to find the hadith and narrate it, but the Prophet ﷺ kind of said, woe to you Arabs. Basically, I'll just give you a bit of a summary. He says, woe to you Arabs, as like the Quraysh, why is it that you're, not destroying me, kind of, it's like, it's a, just step aside. As the Quraysh, just step aside. That if you step aside, it's a win-win for you. Because if someone else kind of kills me, you've got what you wanted. And if I destroy that other kind of group, whatnot, I'm one of you as well. So it's win-win for you. But if you kind of get involved, it's lose-lose situation. Because I'm one of you, you're just destroying one of your own. Okay? So yeah, he, along those words, basically, he was really upset. The fact that they were still kind of determined, because he did not want to fight. He made it clear he did not want to fight. Okay, so anyway, the message kind of gets to him. So he decides, the Prophet ﷺ decides. So like I said, they're traveling from from Medina to Mecca, kind of straight road almost. At that point, they kind of head west. Okay, they head west, so they kind of divert. They don't want to kind of confront these kind of 200 horsemen of Khalid bin Walid. So they divert. They go a different direction, and he knows there's a different direction. And he asks, oh, does any of the local Bedouins? He says, "Can you take us by this certain route?" He did not know the route, but he knew there was a different route. Okay, so then so they went about a different route. Okay, to bypass the army of Khalid bin Walid. Now, there also is another kind of narration where they pass through this valley, which is very difficult. Okay, they're kind of thorns, etc. They really struggle to get through. Yet the Prophet ﷺ is encouraging them, and he says, "Look, I've been told that all of you will be forgiven. For this kind of getting through, all of you will be forgiven, except for the one, with the red camel. Except for the one with the red camel." And then straight away, the Sahabas are thinking, "Oh, who's the one with the red camel?" Everyone but one with the red camel. They eventually they find this one person who has lost his red camel. He was with them, obviously, but his kind of intentions weren't really as pure as the rest of them. And they say, "Look, come with us to the Prophet ﷺ. He will obviously hopefully, inshallah, he'll make dua for you, that you also get forgiven." So they're thinking, why he should not be left out. You come along with us, and inshallah, the Prophet ﷺ will make dua, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will forgive you too. And then you understand why this is mentioned, because then the response of this one person is that, I find my camel than go to your companion. So the words are used, your companion, to seek forgiveness. So you knew straight away, look, his heart was not really into it, his intentions and etc. was not there. That's why this is kind of mentioned. Okay, but eventually, like I said, they get through this valley. They get through, and then they kind of reach a valley called Hudaybiyah. And at this point, the mount of the Prophet ﷺ, so the Prophet ﷺ is on Qaswa. Okay, his white she camel Qaswa. At this point, and this is the she camel that upon whom the Prophet ﷺ would receive revelation, the one he was given by Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq, on which he made hijrah, the one that had determined the location of Masjid Nabawi. Okay, so this mount, Qaswa, comes to a halt, just stops, and she refuses to move, because the idea here was that they were going to divert and then off we continue going, but Qaswa stops there and just does not move. And then the Sahaba, they're kind of trying to push, like, come on, move along, halal, that's how they say it, move along. But Qaswa does not move. Okay, Qaswa does not move. Nothing works. And the companions say Qaswa is being stubborn. And the Prophet ﷺ said that she is not stubborn. It's not in her nature. Okay, but he holds her who held the elephants. Okay, he holds her who held the elephants. What do you mean that? In Abraha, the time of Abraha, when you have the story and the elephants just stop. Okay, when the elephants stop, the Prophet ﷺ said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has stopped her. So basically, we'll make camp here. Okay, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has stopped her, and we'll make camp here. Now, this kind of place, it's not a particularly good place to make camp. There's very little water, and the water that is kind of present is kind of brackish and salty. So the Prophet ﷺ tells the companions, bring me some of the water from the well, and he takes an arrow and he places the arrow inside kind of the bucket or the well, and then he spits into the water, and suddenly water begins to gush from the bucket or from the well itself. It just gushes, and everyone kind of drinks as much as they want. In another narration, the Prophet ﷺ, and again, I don't know, whether it's the same time that this happened, or instead of that kind of gushing from the well, it's basically that from the bucket. But there's this narration that the Prophet ﷺ put his hand inside the bucket of water, and water began to flow out from between the fingers of the Prophet ﷺ. Okay. Now, this particular miracle, the miracle of water coming out from the fingers of the Prophet ﷺ, is one of those miracles that is mass transmitted. Okay, mass transmitted. There are so many narrations about it, so many kind of different Sahaba report this miracle of the Prophet ﷺ, that it's impossible that it did not occur. It's impossible that it did not occur because it's so widely narrated by so many different independent kind of chains. And the ulama say that this is the purest and the most blessed water in existence, the water that came from the hands of the Prophet ﷺ. Okay, and then the Sahaba drink and so forth. Now again, the kind of the difference I'm trying to talk about here is that, so the incident of water coming out from the fingers of the Prophet ﷺ is mass transmitted. It happened, definitely a miracle. Whether it took place at this point in Hudaybiyah, it's difference of opinion. Whether it took place somewhere else, there's difference of opinion on that. But that incident did take place, so there's no kind of denying about that incident. It's not possible to deny that incident because it's mass transmitted. Okay. Then what happens is one of the nearby tribes who are not in alliance with the Prophet ﷺ, but they're kind of disposed towards the Prophet ﷺ, they send out some food, so the Sahaba were kind of fed. They rested and they had this kind of beautiful water to drink. Okay, so that's the kind of journey. This is the Prophet ﷺ setting out to perform Umrah. Okay, setting out to perform Umrah. But there are so many events that are going to now take place, so hence why it's like there'll be kind of a series of lessons around this topic. Okay, so we leave it. That's a good point to leave it there, and then inshallah next week we'll kind of take things further. If I get the chance, obviously I'll try to kind of pick up some maps and some pictures and all that, depending on what how much time I have available. But inshallah in like a couple of weeks time everything will be back to normal again, so I'll be able to kind of do more and more detailed things. But like I said, I'll still be covering it in detail as much as possible. Okay, so we leave it at that then. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamun alal mursalin walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin bi rahmatihi ya arhamar rahimin. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.